Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, joining us as we get together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, and every day is a glorious day when the ice cream man himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, comes on down in his musical truck dispensing cream to all the children. Robert, how you doing? Did that not sound right? What?
Wow, John. I just don't know what to say if I'm going to be dispensing cream to all the children. I want to make sure that people know that it's proper hand-churned, handmade ice cream with not enough sugar in it, not a lot of sugar. I want to make sure that everybody, and I do sell bomb pops as well. I like bomb pops. And
of course you've completely sanitized truck top to bottom.
Yeah. Yes.
Practicing social distancing, handing it out with a stick to the kids through the window. Yeah, all that kind of good stuff.
Wow, I just don't even know what to say after that.
Hey, guys, I hope you had a fabulous weekend. I know I actually had a really good weekend. Last night was our game night, and of course, we've been practicing social distancing, so we had our big our Dungeons & Dragons group play online last night, so that was a lot of fun. Had a good time with that. And listen, guys, I'm going to let you guys know this, too. Today, we're going to do something kind of fun today. We're going to do something kind of fun because apparently Netflix has got it all set up. So I know a lot of us are looking for stuff to do, and how do we do stuff together? Well, this is what we're going to do today. Today at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So is it 9, so it's 10, 11, 12, 1. 4 hours from now. If you go over to my Twitter at, say, 12:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you'll get the link because today at 1 p.m., I'm inviting everybody. Normally, this will just be for our Patreon supporters, but we thought, let's do the first one with everybody. Have everybody come along and have some fun. We're going to do an Avengers Infinity War watch party. Now, this is what you need to do if you want to participate in the watch party. You got to go over to netflixparty.com. You have to get the extension. Now, here's a couple of asterisks here. You got to be a Netflix member, obviously. You need to install the Netflix Party extension on a Chrome browser. And then, like I said, at 12:45 p.m., I will put up a link to the Netflix party, and then I will hit play, and all of us will be able to watch the movie together. There's a chat board on the side where all of us can talk, and I'm also going to live stream myself on video on YouTube, reading out some of the comments, like not all of them, obviously, but reading out some of the comments, answering some questions, giving my thoughts on different parts of the movie as we go. So if you want to have two windows open, your Netflix window and your YouTube channel on my channel there, we're going to do that as well. So yes, today at 1 o'clock, I will put this graphic up on my Twitter as soon as we're done the show here today. Just to remind you, and then remember, once again, at 12:45 p.m., that's when you can come to my Twitter and get the view party link. Then we'll start up at 1 o'clock. Again, don't forget, before that, though, go to netflixparty.com and get all the stuff installed that you need to. It's totally free other than your Netflix subscription, so make sure you guys come and join us for that. Okay, guys. With that down, we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about here today, and we're going to start today with a little off the top. Rob, one of the movies that I know you in particular have been very excited about and a little bit bummed out that it got bumped, but it's the new James Bond film, No Time to Die.
Oh, come on, man.
Just a little bit. And listen, a lot of times these big movies, the actors don't see the movie before it actually premieres and comes out. I probably like 90% of the time they don't see the movie. However, some cast from the movie have seen it. They have watched it. As a matter of fact, she first appeared in Spectre. Bond girl Léa Seydoux had seen the movie. She's seen No Time to Die. And her reaction to it, it's short, but I found it interesting because I would not think of a reaction like this to a James Bond film. Here's her thoughts. There's a lot of emotion in this Bond. It's very moving. I bet you're going to cry because when I watched it, I cried, which is weird because I'm in the movie. Now, Rob, when we see this trailer to the Bond film, to No Time to Die, which, by the way, I think is fantastic, I get action and pump and excitement and all this kind of stuff. I don't think, well, I'm going to cry at the end of this movie. But you hear her say those words, How do you figure that's going to fit into this James Bond No Time to Die movie? And does that sound consistent for you, or does that sound a little odd to you?
Well, there is a James Bond movie that I have cried in the past, and that was, of course, on 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because at the end of that movie, Bond gets married, and then his wife gets assassinated by Blofeld at the very, very end of the film.
Right.
And it ends with Bond himself crying and holding his dead wife in his hands, and a police rolls up on him, and he's looking at the police officer trying to comprehend what's happened, and he says she's going to be all right, really. We have all the time in the world. And then the Bond theme kicks in over the gunshot in the front glass that killed her of the car that they were in. And man, dude, I got to tell you, talk about waterworks, cry time. If this movie ends like that, and I would assume that there's got to be some kind of a vibe, an On Her Majesty's Secret Service vibe, one that makes me sad, but two that gets me really excited now, because if a Bond film can generate that kind of emotion, it means you had to become emotionally invested in the film during the course of it. And it just, I always get excited for James Bond movies, but I have extremely high hopes for this Bond film, more so than I've had in quite some time. And coming off the disappointment 5 years ago of Spectre, I'm really hoping that this movie, obviously it's the last Daniel Craig Bond film, I want this to be stratospheric in terms of awesomeness. And it just, if Léa Seydoux says it, I'll listen or do whatever she ever says or thinks.
All right, so let me bring up something that is unthinkable. Unthinkable. When you hear Léa say, "I cried at the end," you mentioned this is Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond. He has actually become my favorite James Bond, oddly enough. And that's not a "what have you done for me lately" just because he's the latest guy to do it. I legitimately love him. I think because he is, like, to me, the perfect hybrid of the two archetype James Bonds. He's the suaveness of Roger Moore. He's the badassery of a Sean Connery, kind of rolled in one package. Say. That's why I've really liked him. But as his last film, crying at the end, Rob, what are the chances they do the unthinkable and actually kill James Bond at the end of this film? Is that somewhere you think they could go?
Well, to be honest, I think they do kill James Bond. And
really?
I'll tell you why I think that, because I know that I'd read once that Danny Boyle, part of Danny Boyle's problem, or he was going to originally make this movie and he left over the proverbial creative differences. And I had heard that was his idea. Now, in this film, we saw, in the Daniel Craig series, we saw Bond's first outing. We saw him become a 00 at the beginning of Casino Royale. And then this film, over the course of 5 movies, has sort of shown his life. And like now in this film, he's retired. So in a way, this is sort of a Bond continuity that's closed off from the other continuities, other than the fact that M was M, Judi Dench was M. And it wouldn't surprise me if this has a comment on, because that doesn't mean they can't go back and restart the franchise with somebody else playing Bond. Because already Bond is retired in this film. So if they bring James Bond back and he's in his prime, it's just a Bond movie that takes place within the life of Bond. Whereas this film has really dealt with the character's progression from beginning to end. And it makes sense to me that they would kill off Bond in this movie. And I also think that the Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, who control the franchise, it's been the family business since 1962. I have often said that they're done with Bond. This is it. They're making their statement. Like, I think Michael Wilson's 77 or something. Like, why do they want to keep making these movies? It took 5 years between Spectre to get this movie made. And if Michael Wilson, they take that long, he's going to be in his 80s. And I just think this is a great place to end their series, end their tenure, and probably sell the franchise a la Lucas to someone else. And it gives a perfect way of passing this franchise along. I mean, someone's going to have to pay for it, obviously, but they can start anew. And I think it's time. I think it would be sort of fitting if the Broccoli family run on Bond went from 62 to 2020. It's 25 official films. What a great cinematic legacy that they've left to the world. And if they started again, I don't know if they could ever reach the heights that they've reached with Craig. I mean, Craig's portrayal is so beloved, and I think it would be kind of fitting. So it wouldn't surprise me, John, if Bond dies.
See, I think here's what I think. I think there's a bunch of people out there right now who are kind of theorizing that, what they're going to do is they're going to kill Bond, and Lashana Lynch is going to take over the franchise. But Lashana Lynch is not James Bond. Lashana Lynch is the new, person with the employee number of 007. She's not
right.
that. And Barbara Broccoli, I keep saying broccoli, it's broccoli.
Yeah.
Barbara Broccoli has made clear, listen, James Bond is a man. All right, let's just be clear about that. He can be white, he can be black, he can be whatever, but James Bond is a man. That's what Barbara says. Her saying that, because you remember we talked about her making that comment the other day. Her saying that leads me to believe she's got future plans. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dead wrong on that. Maybe I'm reading way too much into that. But I don't think they kill him. But you know what's great? I think for the first time ever, this could be the first time ever we're going into a James Bond film where we really don't know if he lives or dies at the end. That's never been a question, right? That's never been a question. That's obviously James Bond does not die at the end. This is the first time I'm ever going into a James Bond movie where I legit don't know if he's going to live or die.
Well, the title of the film, No Time to Die, there's never any time to die, but death is inevitable. So, John, I think that Bond has put off his death for a long time, but there's only so many times you can cheat death or fight your way out of it. And there's no time to die, but the time comes for every man and every woman and every person. So I think, in terms of knowing what Cary Fukunaga does, watching True Detective Season 1, which I think is a masterpiece, and Beasts of No Nation and things that he's done, it wouldn't surprise me because I think that kind of mortality, and there's a little spirituality in there, I could see that becoming a part of what this movie's about. And maybe when they talk about test audiences responding badly, maybe that's what they responded badly to.
And by the way, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. Because I never heard Barbara Broccoli say that. I never heard I never, unless I hear an actual studio person say that, I never believe any reports of, did you hear there was a test screen? I don't buy it.
No, it's true because somebody would be there and write about it on the internet, and nobody has. Yeah. It's not on Reddit. It's nowhere.
So the question here is, guys, what do you make of her comments about she wept in this movie? Do you think that could be foreshadowing the death of James Bond? Maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that down, let's move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here as a main topic on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld recently said that Josh Brolin told him he wanted to be able to continue to play Cable after the Fox X-Men characters were put under Disney and Feige's reign, despite having been Thanos. Actors like Gemma Chan are able to play 2 different Marvel characters, so why not Brolin? Do you think Marvel will keep him as Cable?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, that is actually, in fact, what was said. Now, if we go over and take a look here, let's go over and get the actual words that Rob Liefeld said. So Rob Liefeld was talking about this. He said, "Look, I'm going to tell your viewers, Josh wants to be Cable again sooner than later." Liefeld tells comicbook.com, Brandon Davis, "He is itching to be Cable again. He loved being Cable. He told me he understands how beloved his role as Thanos is, but he doesn't look completely like Josh Brolin." So there's that. That's coming out of the Rob Liefeld's comments talking about Josh Brolin. Now, Whenever you see stories like this run around, the first thing you have to understand is this. An actor coming back to play a role is 99% of the time not a matter of whether or not the actor wants to come back to play the role. 99% of the time, that's completely irrelevant. The studios really don't care. If the studios have him under contract, then he really doesn't have a choice about whether or not he comes back to play it or not. Anyway, it's really up to the studios. So, and by the way, actor wants big paycheck for doing the job of his dreams. It's not a headline. Still, that being said, there's been an argument made that Josh Brolin cannot be Cable anymore with Deadpool being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, or so they say, because he's already been Thanos. Let's get that one out of the way right now. Cable isn't Thanos. All right, Thanos is a giant 12-foot tall, however tall he is, purple skin, grimace-chinned, whatever it is Deadpool called him, a CGI creature that, yes, has some resemblance to Josh Brolin. Sure, but it's not Josh Brolin. And as you so articulately put in the email, we have seen other characters actually pop up in multiple roles. So it's not completely unique. It's not completely different. It would be totally fine. Let me tell you why, though, I don't think you're going to see Josh Brolin back as Cable. And then we'll talk a little bit about why you just might actually see him back as Cable. I don't think the problem or the hesitation or the roadblock in Josh Brolin coming back to play Cable is actually the fact that he's Thanos. I really don't think that is at all any problem whatsoever to the people at Marvel. I think Kevin Feige, when he thinks about this, I don't even think the thought that he's already played Thanos even remotely crosses his mind, right? If Josh Brolin played a very human-looking Thanos and it was just him, maybe it'd become an issue. But at this point, I don't think that's an issue at all. I'll tell you why. If you had to make an argument about why he's not coming back, this is the reason he's not coming back. Because that story had nothing to do with Kevin Feige. And Kevin Feige, I think, historically has shown he is very protective of his story. One of the reasons, Rob, I don't know if you were at the Marvel MCU Phase 3 announcement at the down at the El Capitan Theater, but
no,
me and a few other people were down there. And one of the big moments that was kind of a ooh moment was one of the people in the audience asked, what about tie-ins with the television stuff that's going on, right? And Feige's response was so dismissive. And I think, mostly because I had nothing to do with that story. I'm not going to try to jerry-rig it so it force fits into my world and my story.
Right.
I had nothing to do with that. And it was such a dismissive thing. It was like, okay, it's pretty clear Feige is only concerned about his MCU. And I have a feeling that if all this transpires and everything, I think the biggest reason why you wouldn't see Josh Brolin back as Cable is because that's not Kevin Feige's story. That wasn't his thing. And I don't know that he feels the need or the desire to try to fit what somebody else's story was in order to make it work in his MCU. So if there's any reason he's not going, that's going to be the reason. That would be the reason he wouldn't come back. It wouldn't be because the fans didn't like him, because the fans liked him. It wouldn't be because Brolin doesn't want to come back, even though that's irrelevant, but he does want to come back. It wouldn't be because of it wouldn't be because of whatever. It would only, and I believe exclusively, be because Kevin Feige wants his own stuff. Period. End of sentence. Have a good day, sir. Which is one of the reasons why the X-Men universe is going to be a complete reboot. He doesn't want to inherit somebody else's stuff. He wants to move forward. That said, Rob, I want to suggest a very significant reason why all that could be true and why we very well could still see Josh Brolin as Cable. It starts with, I still believe there's a chance that Kevin Feige doesn't actually integrate Deadpool into the MCU.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, that's been a long-standing thing here. That the whole R-rated issue, blah, blah, blah. I believe there is still, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but I still believe there's a very legitimate chance that Kevin Feige lets Deadpool stand on its own as its own cinematic thing under the Fox banner, blah, 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 and all that, or 20th century banner they're going to do. I think that just makes sense. So those are the reasons why, Rob, I think we won't see Josh Brolin back, and the reasons why I think we very well could. But Rob, you take a look at this. You hear these comments. Josh is itching to get back to play this role again. What do you make of this?
Well, look, as we know, the Deadpool franchise is a $750 million plus grossing franchise. This is not something you shake a stick at. And they did buy the 20th Century, now it's 20th Century Studios.
Oh, right, yes.
They've released films like that, so they have the 20th Century Studios logo, moniker, whatever. This is something, they've got the creative team in place. Ryan Reynolds is going to head it up and make sure that nothing happens. They've got the writing staff. I mean, I'm sure they'll bring back maybe the same director we saw in Deadpool 2. This is almost a no-brainer. And at least we'll probably get one more Deadpool movie out of this, and to round out a trilogy. It makes good business sense. I think that Disney is going to need material. I mean, they're only releasing 8 to 10 movies a year, which isn't a lot. They don't have, and 20th Century Studios, after we see what they've already had in the pipeline play out, what other movies they're going to release? They could retire that, I guess, but they still need to feed Hulu. And they need to feed their other streaming platforms and services other than Disney Plus. And I think making a third Deadpool movie is almost a no-brainer. And bringing Josh Brolin back as Cable, obviously people love him. There was great chemistry there. He was a great character. I love the way he was portrayed on screen. He's already in the Disney family. So in a way, I see Josh Brolin's involvement a benefit, because he obviously did a lot as Thanos for them, and I think making another there's no risk. I mean, Hollywood wants to be risk averse. There's no risk for Disney now that they have the 20th Century Fox label to release the film under. No one's going to mistake this film. It's not going to wind up on Disney Plus. I think it could happen, and I think that it's a good thing. And I think you are dead on the money. I don't think Deadpool belongs in Feige's MCU the way it's been created, because it wasn't something that they created. And it's not an ego thing. It's just, they've carefully built this franchise. They've carefully curated it over 11 years. Now we're going to see, well, if we ever see them, but we will eventually. We've got Black Widow and the Eternals. So there's going to be 24 movies, actually 25 movies. This is movie 24 and 25. So this is something that Kevin Feige has carefully built, and he's going to continue to do that. And I see that making a Deadpool movie outside of the MCU is a smart play.
All right. Question here is, guys, what do you think about Rob Liefeld's comments? Do you think we're going to see James Brolin back as Cable whenever and however we restart the Deadpool universe? I've got some reasons why we won't and some reasons that we will. What do you guys think? What's some stuff that we're overlooking here? Jump down into the comment section and let everybody know. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Damon Crawford, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. Love your show always. Thank you so much. Had a thought while watching Hulk and the Agents of Smash. Do you think with the She-Hulk series coming to Disney Plus, will they reintroduce the leader, Abomination, Betty Ross, Rick Jones into the show? Love to hear your thoughts, and Hulk out." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And that is, I think, honestly, a great question. Now, the world of fandom got turned on its ear a little while ago at D23 as they announced that Disney Plus was actually going to have a She-Hulk show, something that I fully admit I really didn't think they would do. I really didn't think they would do a derivative character off the Hulk like that. And people would ask me, you think we're going to see She-Hulk? I said, well, maybe in 10 years, but I don't really think they're going to do one now. And lo and behold, Kevin Feige comes out on stage. We're going to do She-Hulk. On top of Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, and a bunch of other things too. But She-Hulk was one of those things. Another thing that's interesting to me is, as you go back to the last Hulk movie, we have these characters. Abomination, Betty Ross. We have the leader, which we caught at the end of the film, and ne'er were they ever mentioned again. However, there is something interesting to keep in mind. And that interesting thing to keep in mind is this, is that Marvel and the MCU chose to remind us that Abomination and Blonsky is still out there. And they've done it a couple of subtle ways a couple of times. There was one of the MCU shorts that they did where there was that meeting in the diner and all that kind of stuff, and they directly mention and reference Blonsky is on the raft and in there. He's been mentioned and referenced on a couple of occasions. So they keep reminding us that Abomination is out there, right? I've always felt Abomination is still, even though they used him in one of the movies, I still believe he is an untapped gem, because as a villain, he presents any filmmaker with a really great foil as a tool. Like a really great tool, because he is just so menacing and powerful. There is any Avenger he can go toe-to-toe with. He can go toe-to-toe with any Avenger that they've got. He won't beat any Avenger that they've got out there, but he can give a fight to any Avenger out there. And I think what you will about the last Hulk movie, I loved the battle between Hulk and Abomination. I don't know why it's such a silly concept, but that scene when Hulk rips the car apart and then puts each half of the car on like boxing gloves and then goes and starts beating the piss out of I don't know, I was geeking out and jumping out of my chair. I believe he's a rich character. Of course, Leader, if you know much about the comics, Leader is an important figure in the Hulk mythology. Now, I'm not saying they executed the Leader nearly as well as they executed, say, I thought they did a really good job with Blonsky, so they didn't do as good of a job with Leader, but still he's there. And a big question a lot of people are asking, where the hell's Betty Ross? Where's Betty Ross? Where's Liv Tyler? Where is she? You know? And so I think with hearing the announcements, like on WandaVision, I believe they've announced that Two Broke Girls star, the girl from Thor and Thor 2.
Yeah.
Mew. Why am I forgetting her name?
It's Kat Dennings.
Kat Dennings. I love her, by the way. I think she's great. But they've announced that she's coming back. Randall Park, a.k.a. Asian Jim, he's coming back. So they're clearly going to be using these Disney Plus shows to bring back some other side characters from the movies. I'm going to tell you this, Rob. I will give a solid 60%. I believe 60% we will either see the return of, or a mention, or an appearance of Leader, Abomination, or Betty Ross. Betty Ross would be a great thing, because then you could have like a girl, you know, like some a really good female friendship on there, and that ties into the overall Hulk stuff. And anyway, I just think 60%, not a guarantee, but I think there's a very, very good chance we see these characters. Rob, what do you think the chances are, or the benefit of, or the downfall of, the idea of seeing an appearance of either Leader, Abomination, Betty Ross, some of those other characters? What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think, look, one of the things that I think they found appealing about making a She-Hulk show is that character, you know, we've often talked about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe is made like Winter Soldier was a 70s political thriller, and the Ant-Man movies are like heist movies, and they're playing with genres. Well, you know, what is one of the oldest, most venerable genres on TV? The lawyer show. People love lawyer shows, you know, whether it's Boston Legal, whether it's LA Law, you know, whether it's The Practice, which is part of Boston Legal, all of those things. People love lawyer shows. They love those procedural shows. And She-Hulk is a lawyer show. It's something that we've seen a long time. It's one of the Defenders. I used to love the Defenders when I was a kid, which has nothing to do with Marvel Comics, but it was a lawyer show. And I think even like the Paper Chase when kids were in law school. So making a lawyer procedural show is one of the great television genres. And then to add She-Hulk, who herself is a lawyer, you're going to do like an LA Law kind of a show, but with superheroes, which gives you the opportunity that you can bring these characters. Even Tim Roth has now been on a television series. Kat Dennings, obviously, TV series. These are people that aren't strangers to television. So for them to come back and do either guest stars or become recurring characters, it's a natural. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? And if they're doing these shorter seasons, whether it's 8 episodes or 10 episodes, they'll try things out and see what works. I think absolutely we would see. I mean, who thought William Hurt would come back? You know, there's your direct tie-in. Thunderbolt Ross, I mean, that's a direct tie-in to the Hulk movie. And who's to say that they wouldn't? I think absolutely they've already got this rich, as you astutely pointed out, a rich tapestry of supporting characters that already tie back into the MCU that they're going to bring back that are going to delight fans. They're deep cuts. If the MCU can have deep cuts in them, these are kind of deep cuts already, because as that each movie comes out and doesn't have these characters, they get deeper and deeper back into Marvel history. I think it's a great idea, and it's a way that, with the kind of budgets they're going to be able to muster for these shows, they can afford these actors. And like you said, actors want to come back and do, who wouldn't want to come back and do guest star roles where they can come back and, work for a week and get a pretty decent sized paycheck and make everybody happy. Everybody wants to work. Bill Hurt's got to eat, John.
Yeah, he's got to eat too. So the question here is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think that the new She-Hulk series is nope, clean slate, its own standalone thing? They're going to really, really reinforce its own independence as a series? Or do you think they'll take advantage of those tie-ins that tie it into the greater thing that's also a shared Hulk mythology stuff, as well as with the MCU, and they're going to get the leader, they're going to get Blonsky, they're going to get, whoever else? Do you think they're going to do that? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Edwin Perez, who writes, "Hey crew, love the show. Thank you so much, Edwin. I was wondering if you guys have seen that The Hollywood Reporter just broke that Canadian beauty Ryan Reynolds is in talks to star and produce a live-action adaptation of the 80s video game Dragon's Lair. I would love if this actually happens. Thanks, and keep up the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, Ryan Reynolds is kind of becoming a little bit like Guillermo del Toro, where it feels like every 2 months a new project that he's doing gets mentioned, and some of them fall by the wayside, but a lot of them come to fruition. Of course, he's got that Clue thing they keep seeing. He's doing a Clue reboot and all that kind of stuff. He's obviously got that video game one coming out that I can't remember the name of right now. It's not Nice Guy, it's Normal Guy, Regular Guy, whatever, where he's a character inside of a video game. That's coming. But now the reports are coming out that I believe it's for Netflix. He's going to be producing and starring in a Dragon's Lair incarnation. This is the report from The Hollywood Reporter. After almost a year of negotiations, Netflix has closed a deal to pick up the rights to the game. Roy Lee was also the producer behind the It movies. Roy Lee will produce via his Vertigo Entertainment, with Trevor Engelson of Underground Films, Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and John Pomeroy are also producing. Reynolds will produce via his banner Maximum Effort. Dan and Kevin Hagman, who worked on the Lego Movie and most recently Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, will write the script. That comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. Rob, this was a game that I remember was so mind-blowing, because you got to remember, at that time, having visuals like that in a game were unheard of. I mean, it was it was really more, it was more animation. You were controlling it. Now, you had very little control other than making left or right choices.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like fully interactive, but still was something that totally blew our minds, and everybody of our generation, we all knew Dragon's Lair. We all knew Dragon's Lair. And the horror of seeing your body turn to bones and falling to the ground. This is an interesting project for Reynolds. Now, look, I'm going to tell you, I would like to see, we've seen Ryan do a lot of projects like this lately, whether it's a Pikachu and now he's doing Clue and something like this, where the fun, silly, kind of enjoyable sort of stuff. I would like to see him getting back a little bit more to doing a Definitely Maybe or a Buried, where I thought he deserved an Academy Award nomination for Buried, but whatever. A little more, a little heavier stuff just to let him really show off his acting chops. But I don't know. This is still intriguing. Rob, you hear about this announcement. What do you think about it?
Well, who didn't love, Dragon's Lair? And obviously they mentioned Don Bluth. When Don Bluth Studios, they did Secret of Nim. And when Don Bluth came on the scene, he was like seen as the new Disney or whatever. And this was one of the things that they did. They did the Dragon's Lair game. And I think, like you pointed out, it was amazing to see that kind of animation. I was a Laserdisc aficionado, and it was a Laserdisc based game. That's how come they were able to have that kind of animation. So you weren't seeing like video generated animation. It was literally film that was on a Laserdisc, so that's why the gameplay wasn't as, you're going left and right and all that. But I was a huge fan of it. I think that they could make a great movie. I think it'd be awesome if they did that. I think he would be really good in it. But like you said, I think, Ryan Reynolds is now he's just playing Ryan Reynolds in movies. And I think Ryan Reynolds actually does have some great acting chops. And I would like to see him get back and really start to stretch as an actor and do more serious, more dramatic roles. Because after Six Underground, I was kind of like, man, I'd really like, and it looks like he's doing more. He's playing to those strengths, obviously, but I would like to see him. I'm getting bored of the Ryan Reynolds persona, and maybe he could bring more of an Indiana Jones quality, where he can actually, if they make this about this errant knight or whatever, that he could sort of descend into that world and create a character that uses his best qualities of humor, but also a character that just isn't breaking into that Ryan Reynolds persona. That's what I would hope.
You know what? There's an example. While I'm saying I'd like to see him stretch out more and get more into heavier dramatic stuff because he's so good at it, it's not to suggest I'm getting tired of the persona, because you and I just recently saw a movie, and I just watched it again a couple of nights ago. Ann and I went back and watched Hobbs and Shaw the other night. And,
good man. Justice for Han. Justice for Han.
And in Hobbs and Shaw, Ryan Reynolds makes his appearance, which was totally surprising. And hell, his character in Hobbs and Shaw is the very personification of the Ryan Reynolds character right now.
Right.
But it was great. It was awesome. He was so funny in it, and it worked so well. And so I'm not saying I want to see him stop doing that. It's not like I don't want to see him be Deadpool again, or I don't want to.
Right.
I just like to see more mixed in with it, like vary it up a little bit, because I just think he's just too talented to just focus exclusively on this sort of persona. And, Pikachu was Ryan Reynolds in animated form, right? His Six Underground character was Ryan Reynolds in a little bit more of a serious thing. But, I mean, part of that might have just been the fact that Six Underground really wasn't very good. So it's going to be interesting to see. But this is a title I did not think we would hear getting a live action adaptation. And it kind of sounds kind of neat. Or maybe they're going to go animated, but I've heard it's going to be live action. Guys, what do you think about this? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by God of War, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. Sony is no longer content to wait for media giants to produce shows based on its games. The company has formed a PlayStation Production Studios that will produce movies and TV shows based on their games, which we've covered before. I know you know this, but I want to know which game you love and want to make a movie or show about. I want a God of War show." All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And of course, there are several of these things that are already in the works, right? We know that. We know there's an Uncharted series coming to HBO. We know an Last of Us series is coming to HBO. We know an Uncharted movie is coming by Sony. We've heard talk about the God of War movie rights and all this kind of stuff. So the question really becomes to me, which one of these properties, because I think when you're talking about like the PlayStation properties that have cinematic potential, to me, these are the 3 properties that really have the most potential of making really good narrative translations from the video game format into an actual narrative format of either movies or television. And that really got an interesting discussion going last night when I was doing my D&D group. This kind of came up and blah, blah, blah. And I think let me say this up front, just to be clear. I think all 3 of these have fantastic, tall ceiling potential.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of them have great, great potential. But I'm going to tell you which 2 I think have even the more potential than the third. And then I'll tell you which one of the 2 I'll pick of those. I think out of these 3, the 2 that honestly have the most potential, I'm not saying these are the better games. I'm simply saying from a narrative point of view, which one of these has the potential to make the more epic kind of on-screen story. I'm going to say Last of Us and God of War. That is not to take anything away from Uncharted. Uncharted is going to make a great, fun adventure series. Absolutely. Once Tom Holland gets in there and they do their thing, I think it's going to be great. I really do. It's not to take anything away from the Uncharted at all. But when you look at God of War, because Rob, I've said for a long time, people always say, the video games make great movies. It's like, no, they don't. 90% of the time, no, they don't. Their narrative's built for gameplay, not for storytelling. But two of the exceptions are these two. Last of Us and God of War are two of those exceptions. These really are, you know what they feel like to me, Rob? They feel to me like somebody made a video game out of a movie. That's what it feels like to me. Like when I look at the Last of Us story and the gameplay, it feels like this was already a movie and somebody translated it into a game. When I see the God of War footage and stuff, I feel like this must have already been a movie and then they just made it into a game rather than the other way around. The potential for both of these are so grand because they have depth, they have deep character development, they have real drama, they have fantastic action, great world building, all that kind of stuff. All the ingredients you need to make a really great on-screen narrative. And I believe Uncharted has a lot of that too. Don't get me wrong. I think Uncharted has a lot of that as well. But I think the one I really the two I'd have to give the nod to as the biggest potential is Last of Us and God of War. Out of the two, the one I think has the highest potential out of those two, I'm actually going to say God of War. I'm going to say God of War because to me, God of War not only is such a great self-contained story, with rich but not too many characters, with great depth, possibilities for great flashbacks, a terrific ending, all that kind of stuff, and just a world that I feel was made for the big screen. I feel like that God of War world is just made for the big screen. Now, I had a little bit of debate with some people online saying, well, you can't do God of War until you do the earlier ones. You have to do all the original games and turn those into movies first. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because the latest God of War game is so perfectly scripted and so perfectly self-contained, you don't need to know anything about the previous God of War games and to be able to just jump right in and fully pick up, because all the information you as a viewer need to know about this world, they give that information right in this story, right in this game. It is perfectly self-contained, does not require the previous games to be translated to live adaptations. I'm not saying that would be a bad idea, don't get me wrong. I'm saying it doesn't require it. So I think they'd both be great. I think all three would be great. My vote would be for God of War. Rob, these are three just terrific narratives, these three games. Uncharted, Last of Us, God of War. When you look at these, and you got it like as a filmmaker, they get a hold of you. Bob Iger gives you a call and says, hey, we just took over the rights for these things from Sony. We got to pick one. Which one has the best potential, Rob? Tell me quickly. Which one has the best potential? Which one do you see as having the best potential?
Well, look, I've often talked about how when I first started playing the Uncharted franchise, it was the closest I thought a video game came to being a movie. But my problem with the Uncharted franchise is so much of the game is actually the penetration into wherever it is you're going. The temple, you're going into the jungle, and half the game was that gameplay. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't necessarily lend itself to being a movie. And like you said, I think God of War, first of all, The Last of Us is great, and it's obviously got great emotional investment. I mean, I don't know if you can possibly get more involved in the emotional aspects of a video game. I mean, I know some people can say that about maybe Final Fantasy, but in terms of the storyline, but that storyline's we've seen so much of it lately in various other kinds of movies. But I think God of War, if they can do it right, the mythology, the characterization, the potential for the visual effects and the vistas and the milieu and the whole, if they do it right, it's a tonal issue, and they might have to make it, R-rated. So they've really got to play it. Like, I could see a God of War movie being like Conan the Barbarian was in 1982. When I wasn't necessarily particularly down with sword and sorcery or mythology or, Greek mythology or whatever. But when I saw Conan, the tone of it, and Schwarzenegger, not being very loquacious, but really looking like he should. Conan was the brutality of it, the bloodletting, the fact that there was the snake cult. And I mean, it was just, it totally turned me around on fantasy movies. If you could do the equivalent of what Conan the Barbarian felt like in 82, but do it now for audiences of 2020, people that have played video games, that have seen Lord of the Rings and are looking for something, the next extension of that, I think God of War might be your best bet. Even, I mean, I remember playing God of War for the first time, and I'm like, the first game, and being like, this game kicks ass, and it was just so much fun to play. And look, I'm not saying it's easy. I think video game movies have an inherent problem in that gameplay is inherently different than narrative. Yeah. And getting us from cutscenes are one thing, but those are perfunctory storytelling moments to get us to the next gameplay level. And a movie, you have to do the opposite. There is no gameplay level, so it's all got to be stimulating and rich and character-driven and story-driven cutscenes. And not every game is like that, and I think it's really hard to do. Yeah, but I do think God of War has the best potential. The Last of Us is too similar in terms of its feel to other things, whether it's Walking Dead or there's so many that I just think God of War has the potential to really break out. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the world of God of War. Last of Us, okay, it's overgrown America, but I want to see God of War done right.
And one of the great things about God of War is it gives you an opportunity they have cross mythology potential. Because they cross from Greek deities to Norse deities to all this kind of stuff. And behind that is great human drama as well. They're the classic motif of a father and his son, and the memory of the mother. And as you get into the game, the whole depth of the story that builds up to a terrific ending and a great reveal at the end. I mean, it's just, there's so much. Again, I think all three can be fantastic. But the one I'm going to kind of cast my lot into is I think God of War might have a little bit more potential. But anyway, guys, I made that today's question of the day. And the question of the day today that I put to you guys, and we just simply put it over on my Twitter. You can go over to my Twitter, simply at John Campea, and see it there. But here's what today's question of the day was. I said, which PlayStation game has the best potential to be great on a movie or TV screen? We discussed this and more. I put this up just before the show started. A little over 2,000 of you guys have voted. And right now, it's good balance across, but Last of Us is in the lead. 45.2% of you are saying Last of Us has the best potential. 30.7% of you guys are saying God of War, and 24.2%. So a good amount. Every single option got a good amount of votes. 24.2% is Uncharted. So again, Last of Us in the lead there at 45.2%. God of War at 30.7%, Uncharted at 24.2%. Guys, I'm going to leave that poll up for the rest of the day. Go on over there and cast your vote. Which of these three great potential stories has the biggest potential to be a breakout hit or really, really epic on a movie or TV screen? Go on over there and leave your votes there. Okay, guys. Now, we have come to that part of the show now. While all of us are bunkering down in quarantine, at least hopefully most of you guys are, it leaves us with an opportunity to make some lemonade out of lemons and get caught up on some maybe great classic or some unknown gems of movies that probably you haven't had a chance to watch yet. And we've called this little segment right now, Stuff You Should Watch at Home. So, Rob, I've been loving your recommendations, by the way. Your recommendations have been great. But what is your recommendation today for stuff people should watch at home?
Okay. Now, I'm going to flat out, I got to say right away, this is not everyone's cup of tea. But I think this is one of the most beautiful, romantic, tragic movies ever made. And it's from director Jacques Demy, and it's The Fantastic Umbrellas of Cherbourg from the early 60s. It's French, but now here's the thing. Yes, 64. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg is a movie that is entirely sung. So, John, as a song and dance man, maybe you can get behind this. It's like an operetta. And basically it is the story of a romance between a man who works at a service station, he's a mechanic, and a woman played by the absolutely radiant Catherine Deneuve, who works in an umbrella shop. She sells umbrellas for a living. And it's the story of two simple people that live simple lives that fall in love. And it is so beautifully designed. You're looking at every single shot is like this beautiful candy-colored painting. It's so romantic. It's so far out of the wheelhouse of superheroes and science fiction. But there is, I think, John, anybody that loves superhero movies and science fiction movies has the heart of a romantic somewhere. I know people are going, what? I'm not a romantic. Yeah, you are. You are. If you like superheroes and Star Wars, there is an element of swashbuckling romance deep in your core. This does not have the swashbuckling. This is only romance. And there's something about this movie that I found entrancing my whole life. And it also has, I'm not going to tell you what, but it has one of the most heartfelt lessons about love that I think every human being needs to know. And it's, again, people are going to turn this movie on if you watch it. It's also one of the most beautiful movies ever made. And you're going to think to yourself, Rob, what were you smoking when you recommended this movie? Well, let me just tell you, this film, nothing. I was not smoking anything. I wasn't even eating edibles. I was just talking about romance. And this film is one of the most beautiful films ever made. It's got beautiful people in it. It's just so sweet and so awesome, but it's a movie that is near and dear to my heart. And my God, what an ending. And I promise you, if you can endure this movie, and if you like musicals, and you like music, and you have the heart and soul of a romantic poet, this movie is for you. And if nothing else, you can watch it with your mom.
And if nothing else, you can watch with your mom. I love that. It's great. Which I think a lot of people might be in a position that they're looking for stuff they can watch with mom right now. You know, that's a deep cut one, man. That is a deep cut one. I like that. All right. So let's go on to my recommendation for the day. And you know what? My recommendation for today is one that, if for those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you've actually heard me talk about this film before. And the fact that I've chosen it as my recommendation today is not going to surprise you very much at all. It is a movie that is now, I believe, 23 years old, or somewhere along those lines. It is one of the most powerful, brilliantly performed and acted, and thought-inducing kind of movies that really makes you think. It is a period piece that makes you think incredibly strongly about our modern world as well. It is a film by the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest filmmaker of all time, in Steven Spielberg, and it is my favorite Steven Spielberg film. As a matter of fact, for those of you who've watched me for any period of time, you know that the movie I am talking about is Amistad. Amistad is a movie unlike a lot of other Steven Spielberg films. It is a movie that makes you look at it, and here's the real brilliance of the film that just makes me sit and ponder, is that it is a movie that reminds us that even good people can hold incredibly destructive and what we would now call evil positions. That if they were able to fast forward in time 100 years and then look back on themselves and the things they did and said, would probably be aghast at themselves. But it reminds me of that there were periods of time when people thought slavery is just okay. This is a good thing. This is whatever. And that they were, I mean, it's just incredible. And I think it is a poignant lesson for a lot of us in today's world about a lot of different issues. But the movie is brilliantly acted. It is brilliantly performed. It is brilliantly told. It has you on the edge of your seat. And if you want to talk about an all-star cast, an all-star cast, listen to this. Anthony Hopkins. Let's just go down here. Anthony Hopkins, Morgan Freeman, Djimon Hounsou, who is now in like 37 comic book movies. But this was I've been a huge fan of Djimon Hounsou ever since this movie. This is the movie that really introduced me to him, and I don't know if it was his first movie or not. Matthew McConaughey. Usual Suspects, I always mispronounce his last name, Pete Postlewaite? Pusthwaite, who passed away a couple,
yeah,
who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Stellan Skarsgård, Alan Paquin, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's like one of my absolute favorite actors in the world right now. This is a movie that you get gripped by the tension of it. You get immersed in the characters of it. You get pushed in your thinking of it. It is just in every way, shape, and form an absolutely brilliant film. It is a brilliant film. And despite all the brilliance that Steven Spielberg has had over his career, you're talking about the greatest filmmaker of all time, in my opinion. And I believe this little film that most people still haven't watched, I believe this is his best. I really do. Not everybody will agree, and that's okay. That's okay. But I know a lot of you guys have not had a chance or not taken the opportunity to sit down and watch Amistad. And I cannot recommend it higher, guys. I really can't. To me, it is just one of the most beautifully done, outrageously glorious films, and maybe one of the most underappreciated films of all time, in my opinion. So take advantage of this time, guys, and watch Amistad. Anyway, Rob, have you had a chance to see Amistad? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Oh, dude, I like you, this is the first time I saw Djimon Hounsou, and you can't, I mean, there's just something, I love the way that guy looks. I love the way he sounds. I love his voice. It's one of the reasons I was grinning ear to ear when I first saw Gladiator. This is one of Spielberg's, I think, unsung masterpieces. I mean, I really do. And a lot of people would say, it also embodies some of the worst, the way Spielberg can be emotionally manipulative. But I'm like, I didn't feel that way. I felt this movie was exactly the way it should have been. And I think Steven Spielberg, I call them the historical epics that he's done. I would include Amistad in that, and Lincoln in that, and Empire of the Sun in that, maybe a little War Horse. I think Spielberg has done some incredible work in this milieu, and Saving Private Ryan. And this is one of those movies where, first of all, it's totally, it's peak filmmaking Spielberg too. I mean, this movie is beautifully shot. And it's got like you said, an all-star cast. This is just a terrific, terrific film that I don't think gets nearly enough credit, especially when discussing Spielberg's entire oeuvre. And I think it needs to be looked at more and more than it ever is. And it's a great pick. I think you have a great pick here.
All right, guys. So there you have it. There's our kind of recommendations for today of stuff you should watch at home while we're all trying to pass the time and make lemonade out of some lemons. Listen, guys, what are some of your recommendations as well? Have you seen either of the films that Robert and I mentioned here? If not, what are some of the recommendations you have for people as well that might be hidden gems or classics that a lot of people haven't checked out yet? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down, we're going to move on to the live questions. But before we get to the live questions, Robert and I are going to do as we do every day. We're going to take a quick 4-minute break here. Give ourselves a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch our legs, refill our drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom, talk amongst yourselves for a bit. So don't go anywhere, guys. Hang tight. Robert and I will be right back with your live questions. See you in just a couple of minutes. guys, and we are back. I got back a little bit early. That's okay. We have a number of things to get to because you guys have been sending in all your live questions. Before we get to the live questions, just want to remind you guys, for those of you who are joining us late, a little bit later today at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today, it is now 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So in 3 hours, I'm going to be holding a little Netflix watch party where we are all going to get together and watch Avengers Infinity War together. Now, in order to participate, you're going to have to make sure you go, first of all, you got to make sure you have a Netflix account. Then you have to go over to netflixparty.com and install the Chrome browser extension for it. And then check my Twitter at John Campea at 12:45 p.m. when I'm going to be posting up the link to the watch party. We're going to be able to chat with each other in the chat board as we watch the movie all together, all synced up. And I'm also going to live stream myself watching it. So you guys, if you want to have two windows open, one on the Netflix streaming of the movie and then one open on my YouTube channel, we can do that as well. But we're going to be doing that today at 1 p.m. Hopefully you guys can join us for that. Now, normally this is going to be something that we're going to be doing moving forward with the Patreon supporters, but we thought we'd start things off here by just opening it up for everybody to come and join us for that. So that'll be at 1 p.m. today. Okay. With that down, let's get into the live questions. And we're going to start things off by getting caught up on one or two of the questions from the weekend. Avery Zavala writes, remembering all the talk about Leo not having an Oscar for the longest time, who is the most talented actor who has been in the business for a long time and is yet to win one? My mind goes to Hugh Jackman. This guy is just way talented. Hugh Jackman is great. Hugh Jackman has been nominated, I believe, a couple of times. He was nominated for Les Mis, and I feel like he's got one more. He might not, but at any rate. For me, though, right now, after Gary Oldman won his, because I think Gary Oldman was the most talented guy in the world, still not to have an Academy Award on his mantle. Then he won it for playing Winston Churchill. I've been saying this for a while. Ralph Fiennes. To me, it's an easy question. Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes is simply world class. And it's insane to me that he doesn't have one yet. So for me, Rob, the mantle of best actor out there right now who doesn't have an Academy Award on his mantle is Ralph Fiennes. Who would you give that sort of mantle to if you had to?
You know what? I got to second that because I've been a Ralph Fiennes fan. The English Patient. I love The English Patient. I loved Ralph Fiennes as Lenny Nero in Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days. I love him as the new M in the James Bond films. Of course, Voldemort. I don't have any Harry Potter figures except I did buy a 6-scale Voldemort because he's Voldemort, and I love him to death. I think he's fantastic. He's been a director. I mean, he was in a movie called Sunshine that I loved. I mean, the guy is awesome. He's just awesome, and I think
his brother's no slouch either.
No,
his brother Joseph Fiennes is absolutely no slouch either. He's one of the great ones too. All right, well, we move on here. Oakley writes, hey, John, I really enjoy the show. Thank you so much, Oakley. I've been working on a Smallville remake episode for over a year now and was wondering if you think what WB would ever revisit the show somehow or make a Smallville movie. I think a Superman prequel movie could really work. No, I don't think they're ever going to go back to that. You know, they did a little tease of it in Crisis, but here's the thing about Smallville. And this is, I remember when they were making, Superman Returns. And they were talking about who's going to be, and they didn't know what the title was yet. It was just, they're making a new Superman movie, and a lot of people screaming bloody murder that Tom Welling has to be Superman. And I had a lot of arguments with people saying, guys, listen, I love Smallville too. I do. But Smallville is not Superman. It's not. It's an Elseworlds kind of vision of Superman, of what that would have been. But this is not, they're not making Smallville the movie. They're making Superman. That doesn't take away from how much I really like Smallville. I don't think they'll ever go back to it. Mostly because I don't think Tom Welling really has any interest of going back to it. I don't think Michael, who plays Lex Luthor, why am I freezing? Rosenbaum. I don't think Rosenbaum has any intention of going back to it. I don't think they really have any intention of going back to it. So no, I don't think they will. But hey, they gave us a lot of seasons that we can still treasure. Rob, do you ever see them going back and doing Smallville again?
No, I mean, they did, 10 seasons of Smallville? I mean, look, in our rebooting culture, who knows? Like, maybe they might. But I just think they've got a new Superman and Lois Lane series coming out. I think that ship has sailed. I just don't see them going back and doing Smallville again, especially like Smallville with your 45-year-old Superman. You know, I just don't see that as being something that they're going to do. I look, in a way, I kind of like The Nolan Batman movies, I always thought, well, they could never do a successful. No one's going to be Batman after Christian Bale. Then, of course, they gave us Ben Affleck, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. And now we've got Robert Pattinson. I kind of like to see the evolution of different incarnations of these characters. It's nice. It's interesting to see different takes, and I think that going backwards is not what people really want. It was nice to see Tom Welling briefly in the latest crossover on the CW, but it also reminded me of man, I don't know if there's a place for Smallville anymore.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see. Michael Preston writes, streaming season 1 and they changed the music. I think that goes back to a question about Supernatural having changed the music. I haven't recognized that, but if they did, it also might be a rights issue. It might be that rights to certain music in a show may have lapsed over time and maybe they had to change it. Who knows? A lot of question marks there. Nerd Talk writes, any idea when we might see a Lucifer season 5 trailer? No, but I've got a feeling it might be soon because I believe they finished shooting all of it. I believe it was totally shot. They are planning on releasing it in 2 chunks. For the first set of episodes they'll release, and then a few months later they'll release the second half of season 2. But I've got a feeling it might be sooner rather than later. I've got a feeling we might see a trailer sooner rather than later. I'm going to guess within the next month. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess within the next month we'll see a trailer. But I have no idea yet when they might release it. Morris Coates writes, George of the Jungle, one of the best theme songs ever written. Boom, 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 boom. Rob, it came up the other day. We were talking about somebody asked me, Rob, they said, quick, movie recommendation just off the top of your head, go. And I said, you know what? George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser, Leslie Mann. That movie just makes my heart smile. I don't know why. I find it endearing and charming, and I loved Leslie Mann. I still love Leslie Mann.
I do too. She's great.
Because seriously, I was going to see if we have the same thing here. When I say Leslie Mann, what's the first thing that jumps to your head?
Judd Apatow.
Well, me, it's.
I mean,
let's
Judd
get
Apatow
some fucking French toast. It's the French toast line from 40-Year-Old Virgin, but yeah, her being married to Judd Apatow. I love that movie, and you're right. It's got the George, and I think John Cleese. Go ahead.
A creative team, Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann. As a husband and wife creative team, I don't think they get enough credit.
I agree. I still to this, I love Leslie Mann. I love her. I could watch her in just about anything. All right. Let's see. Michael Z writes, I hope you're staying safe. I am. Thank you very much. Have you seen the 1985 Soviet war movie Come and See? It left me broken after watching it. Masterpiece. I am not familiar with Come and See, as a matter of fact. Rob, do you know it off the top of your head?
I do, and they've restored it. They've done a big restoration of it. It played in LA a couple weeks back, and I have not seen it. I've only heard about it, and Criterion will be releasing it on Blu-ray later this year, and I can't wait. But everyone's saying it's one of the great war movies or anti-war movies ever made. So I'm really excited to see it.
I gotta put that one on my radar. I gotta thank you for the recommendation on that. All right, Mukbang Reviews writes, just supporting you and your crew and guests are awesome and spectacular. Thank you so much, Mukbang. I appreciate that. And yes, Rob, we had who's a regular here. Our crew is so good. Fact checker Jonathan, Ray, our other guests that come on. We just had Mark Ellis pop on too. Always great and always wonderful. It's always good. So thank you for that, Mukbang. I appreciate that, man. An anonymous viewer writes, I had a Costner double feature yesterday that I can recommend. The Untouchables and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I don't care that his accent comes and goes in that movie. That movie's awesome. I love Prince of Thieves. They're both great and both have great villains. Which villain is your favorite? De Niro's Capone or Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham? His Capone in Untouchables is great. And of course, whenever I think of Untouchables as an Italian, all I think about is Sean Connery. Leave it to a wop to bring a knife to a gunfight. I don't know why, but that's the one. I choke whenever I think about that line. It's great. But listen, man, Alan Rickman, Sheriff of Nottingham. You, my chambers, 8:00. You, 8:30, and bring a friend. Alan Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham is so freaking good. I gotta lean towards Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham, although the Capone in Untouchables is great, but I go Sheriff of Nottingham. Rob, if you had to pick one, which one was it?
Alan Rickman. I like Alan Rickman's performance in Love Actually as the publisher of the magazine that Laura Linney works for, and he's married to Emma Thompson. It's a subtle performance, but a good one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyway, let's keep moving here. Next one comes to us from Perplexed Dungeon Master. Writes, Hey, John, since the outbreak, I haven't been able to DM for my D&D party. What class are you playing also? The most annoying thing you see players do. Mine is not knowing their character's abilities. P.S. Blades of Glory is my recommendation. I hate Blades of Glory. It's one of the few Will Ferrell movies I absolutely hate. But hey, I know a lot of people that like it. We're playing online with each other. So we're using a combination of Roll20 as well as Zoom for video chat. Although you can use Roll20 for video and audio chat as well. But those have been working very well for us. So we've been able to continue to play our D&D campaign, and we just play it remotely, and it's actually a lot of fun. I mean, listen, nothing replaces the experience of actually being in the room together. That's the best. But you know what? Playing remotely has been a really good substitute. And it's been great for us and works. And yes, I hate it when people I'm playing with don't know their own character's abilities. You know, I used to play with this one game master who would start every game by saying, remember guys, the first rule is know your character. Because it's not the game master's job to let you know what you can do. You need to know your character. And I agree with you. That is one of my biggest pet peeves in role-playing a lot. But fortunately, you know, our players seem to know their characters pretty well, and it works pretty well for us. So that's a positive. That's a positive. Okay, next up here. An anonymous viewer writes, I know the X-Men movie is years away and that you don't care about X actor and X role, but here's my dream casting. Magneto, Joel Edgerton. That's an interesting choice. Professor X, Ralph Fiennes. Cyclops, Zac Efron. Zac Efron would be an interesting Cyclops. Jean Grey, Saoirse Ronan. Iceman, Dylan O'Brien. Beast, Ansel Elgort. And Angel, Haley Bennett. That's not bad. The Joel Edgerton pick is an interesting pick for Magneto. Ralph Fiennes, is that? Yeah, again, it all depends on, you know, the vision that whoever the directors have for those characters. That will heavily influence who would be a good actor to play that. And we just don't know what their iteration is going to be right now. But hey, I like all the people that you mentioned. Those are all pretty good. I am looking forward to seeing the new X-Men whenever Kevin Feige gets around to doing it. All right, James Durden writes, hey, John, you mentioned you liked watching tech videos. What are some of your favorite tech channels on YouTube? A few of mine are Unbox Therapy, Linus Tech Tips, Jay's Watsons, Austin Mays, Marquise Brownlee, Android Authority, and Pocket Now. I really like Potato Jet. I really like Potato Jet. I also really like Unbox Therapy. I also really like because you know he's a good Canadian kid. NKBHD or Mikey's, he's great to watch as well. There's also one I've been getting into a little bit. It's a smaller channel. I can't remember the name of the channel, but he calls himself the Stream Professor, which is one I actually quite like. I'm still an old school. I still like Leo Laporte stuff. I still like the Twitch stuff very, very much. Leo Laporte really knows his tech a lot, so I get into that stuff too. So those are some of my favorites. Thanks for that, James. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, John, here are 10 black and white films for young fans to consider. Number 1, King Kong. Number 2, Casablanca. Number 3, To Be or Not to Be. Number 4, The 39 Steps. Number 5, To Kill a Mockingbird. Oh, that's one of the all-time greats. Number 6, The Man Who Laughs. Number 7, The Mark of Zorro. Number 8, Young Frankenstein. Number 9, The Maltese Falcon. Number 10, The Last Picture. Rob, somebody wrote in and asked the other day about, you know, I've got friends who just don't want to watch black and white because if they feel old, what are some good ones I can recommend to them to check out and watch? And I mentioned a couple, but do you have any like old black and white films that you would say, hey, if you want to see how great the older black and white films can be, check these out? Do you have any that fly off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, here, okay, and they're more in terms of modern sensibility. Dr. Strangelove, Seconds, The Sweet Smell of Success, Sunset Boulevard, All About Eve, the movie we watched last night for Whining About Movies, Double Indemnity, 7 Days in May, if you want to watch a movie about a military coup in the United States, which is awesome. The Manchurian Candidate, did I already say that? I mean, remember, black and white movies were around for decades before there were color, and they kept making them way into the 60s.
I agree. Those are all great picks, by the way. Great
How about
picks.
Rumblefish from 1983, Francis Ford Coppola's follow-up to The Outsiders?
I totally forgot that was in black and white. But then you can go to The Artist as well. But I mean, I think he was talking about like the era of black and white. That's why you don't include some of those other ones either. But or like Lighthouse, it's black and white, but I mean, it doesn't really count, I suppose. But those are some great lists. Next up, our friend Kevin Rubio writes, John, I forgot to put my name on my black and white recommendations. No problem, Kevin. Kevin Rubio, I always mention when he writes in, creator of the greatest Star Wars fan film / satire film of all time, Troops. You got to find it. Go watch it. It's the best thing ever made. Dumbledore Calrissian writes, for my birthday, my wife got me my first Steelbook, Knives Out. We just ordered it yesterday. Dude, I'm so excited. The case is absolutely beautiful, and I'm ready to watch those bonus features. Bonus features, Rob. That our friend Cliff Stevens, who was on an episode of Best Movie, Worst Movie, produced a lot of those bonus features.
Dude, he did. There's an amazing documentary, which is probably one of the best special features I've seen in a long time, that Cliff produced for that Knives Out disc. It's really, really good. And if you like the movie, I highly recommend that disc, that 4K disc. And Cliff's work in it is exemplary.
All right, next up, we've got, Dumbledore Calrissian writes, you really caught me off guard yesterday on open mic when you recommended George of the Jungle. I told you about that. This is going to sound funny, but that is the first movie I have a memory of seeing in theaters, and it helped me get through a really tough move when I was young. Man, I can't even imagine how tough that is. I mean, my family moved from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Hamilton, Ontario when I was real young. So I had no roots in Halifax when I moved. And then I'm a Hamilton boy, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm a Hamilton kid my whole life till I uprooted and moved out here. I spent some years living in Saskatchewan, but even when I lived there, it was Hamilton was home, and that's got to be tough. But yeah, man, I'm telling you, George of the Jungle. And I believe it's John Cleese who does the voice of Ape. It's a silly, silly little movie, but for whatever reason, it just makes my heart smile, Dumbledore, when I think about it. I'm glad it was a movie that was able to be there for you at a certain age. All right, Raymond 2000 writes, which album is superior, Thriller or Purple Rain? Oh, you're going to hear a big disagreement right here. I say Thriller. Rob?
Come on.
See, I know. Yeah, there you go.
Michael Jackson does not play an instrument.
The question was, what's the better album?
Purple, come on. Look. I'll understand. There's an argument to be made that Thriller is one of the great pop records of all time. But Purple Rain, dude. Purple Rain is I mean, if any album captures like 1984 America 80s, Purple Rain is it. Prince just shredding, Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain,
It's a great album.
Blue, Darling Nikki, Baby You're a Star. I mean, come on. I understand. I mean, Thriller, the song itself, which
Beat
I love.
Billie
I
Jean.
love the music video. I know.
I mean, one of the only times it hasn't happened often. It doesn't happen often.
I would say this: Purple Rain is a much cooler. You're way cooler if you listen to Purple Rain than if you listen to. I mean, my mom will sing Billie Jean in the kitchen, but she's not going to sing Darling Nikki.
Well, I mean, I suppose that's true. That would be interesting.
She doesn't know a girl named Nikki, and she didn't meet a girl named Nikki, but Prince certainly did.
I heard she was a sex fiend. Yeah. Anyway, yes, Darling Nikki. But I say Thriller. Obviously, Rob says. But that was no surprise there. All right. Andrew at the movies writes, aware of the name Tom Burgess in Canadian football. Yeah, Tom Burgess was a CFL quarterback. I think he had his best. I think he won like 2 Grey Cups. I think he had his best years probably playing for the aforementioned Saskatchewan Roughriders, but he played in Ottawa as well. I'm trying to remember where he started his career. But yeah, he was a quarterback in the CFL. I remember that name. Okay. Matt Yo writes, hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much. I have 2 Aussie movies to recommend. The Rover. I love The Rover, by the way. And it's one of those movies that I tell people, if you don't know how good of an actor Robert Pattinson is, watch The Rover that he did with Guy Pearce. Anyway, Guy Pearce and The Rover, and an older movie, The Interview, starring a much younger Hugo Weaving from 1998. 2 lesser-known movies, but still a great one nonetheless. I'll tell you what, Rob, I'm not familiar with The Interview, which it sounds like from your reaction, you do.
Now they've got I swear to God, they've got that new show, The Interrogation. The Interview is, it's Hugo Weaving being interviewed about a crime. You got to watch it. I have it on Blu-ray. It's just really good. and
No.
it's a movie like, like Locke, where you've got Tom Hardy in a car talking. The interview is one of these contained space. It can get out of the contained space, but it's really good. Good pull on that.
And I love just about anything with Hugo Weaving. I mean, I love Hugo Weaving, so that's got my attention. All right, thanks for the recommendation, man. All right, Daniel Rahimi writes, just rewatched the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm doing that real soon. And it's the perfect set of movies to watch during these crazy times. It gives you hope for the future. It is the best trilogy of all time. Just wondering, who's your favorite character and what's your favorite character? I've never thought of it in those terms. I've never thought, who's my favorite character in the movie? I guess I would probably have to say Gandalf. I think Gandalf is probably my favorite character in the movie, although there are so many of them, because I hesitate to say Theoden because he's just not in it enough. So probably overall that, but my favorite scene, it's just too hard. I mean, there are scenes I go back to a lot, and you've heard me talk about on the show. Gondor calls for aid, and Rohan shall answer. I mean, I get my hair on my arm stands up just thinking about it. There's so many. There's the Battle of Helm's Deep. I mean, I don't know. It's too much. It's too hard to say. Rob, do you have any that just jump out to you that are just clear favorite characters and favorite moments?
I really like Gimli.
Oh, I love Gimli.
Gimli obviously is a supporting character, but I like, at first it seemed like it could have been so one note, but John Rhys Davies, and speaking of John Rhys Davies, I also like Treebeard.
Yeah, who also was John Rhys Davies did the voice of that.
And people would say, like, look, I love Aragorn and I really love Samwise, but there's so much of the Lord of the Rings. I even like, especially in the extended edition, I like Boromir. Even though he's fated to what happens to him, Sean Bean is Boromir. There's this great scene when he's talking to Aragorn that's in the extended edition outside the Mines of Moria, that it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole trilogy. And you think back, the Lord of the Rings are good.
I'll tell you what, Boromir, and I only didn't pick him because he's only in the first movie.
Yeah.
Boromir is my all-time favorite literary character. He's my all-time favorite literary character, because my favorite motif and theme in all storytelling is redemption. Redemption is like my favorite thing, because all of us are habitual screw-ups, and it's nice to know that there is a chance we can recover from our own screw-ups. And the whole thing about him giving in to the power of the ring, but then sacrificing himself to save those that he had threatened, to me, is the death of Boromir. I remember going in, there were two things when I went in to see Fellowship of the Ring that I was really dying to see. Number one was the Shire. I just wanted to see a vision of the Shire for the really first time. The other one was the redemption of Boromir. That was the other one. To me, it's outstanding, and it's my favorite theme in any sort of storytelling, and just the redemption of Boromir is just one of those great ones to me. So, but again, I didn't pick Boromir because he's only in one of the movies, so it's hard for me to do that. All right, let's keep moving on here. That was Daniel. Next up, we have Timbula the Spider Monkey, who writes, have you ever seen The Brotherhood of War, a Korean movie about two brothers who get separated during the Korean War and end up fighting on opposite sides? It's in my top 10 war films. Pardon me. I highly recommend checking it out. No, I'm not familiar. It sounds a little bit like Claudia Gray's Lost Stars, the Star Wars novel. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. It sounds a little bit, maybe she took some influence from this, but I'm not familiar with this one. Rob, are you familiar with this one?
No.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, but that sounds great. I love good Korean film. All right, David writes, with the potential of different states relaxing social distancing rules in stages, would theaters open up in just those states or wait for places like New York and LA to also be in the clear? I expect it could vary month to month for more given certain hot zones. I think that'll be up to the individual theaters to decide. Like, I think my guess is, and I have no insider information on this, my guess is that like AMC and Regal will want to open their theaters all at once. That's my guess. Smaller independent theaters, that could vary from state to state. But I got a feeling the big chains are probably want to do it all at once when it happens. But again, I have no insider information on that. That's just me speculating at this point. It's a good question though, David. All right, Randul or Runa writes, Assassination of Jesse James is Pitt's favorite film of his and my all-time favorite as well. Also, most underrated of all time. Thoughts, guys? Highly recommend it to your viewers. The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is a awesome movie.
Oh.
Awesome movie. It's also, Rob, I think it's safe to say, not a movie for everyone.
No.
Because it is definitely a very slow-paced movie. It has pace. It's just a very slow pace. A very slow-paced movie, a very atmosphere-driven sort of film. It is a very character film that asks the audience themselves to connect a lot of the dots, which is really cool in many ways. But it is an outrageously cool and overwhelmingly brilliant film. But I hesitate to often recommend it to a lot of people because I also feel like it's definitely not a movie that's for everyone. But I don't know. How do you interpret the film?
Dude, first of all, that movie is shot by Roger Deakins. And if nothing else, you can pick your favorite classical music, turn off the sound of the movie, and just watch the picture with classical music, and it's worth watching. I love the movie, but like you said, look, I went out on a limb choosing Umbrellas of Cherbourg for our audience today because people are going to come back to me and go, what? But this movie is hypnotic. It's cinematic. To me, it's like pure cinema. It really is. The performances are great. Brad Pitt has obviously never been better. And it's hypnotic is the best word I can say for it. It's just, you can't take your eyes off this movie. And it's Casey Affleck. And
yes.
The performances are just riveting. And what a movie.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, Mark Hansen writes, John, was curious about what you are using to play your Dungeons & Dragons games remotely. I played in a couple of games from virtual GaryCon this weekend. We used everything from fantasy rounds to Roll20 along with Discord for voice chat. Yeah, we've been using our method. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Our method has been using Roll20. I'm very happy with that system. And then we've been using, now you can use Roll20 for voice chat as well. But I've been keeping a separate window open. We've been using Zoom for our audio communication and our video. So we have all of us on webcam as well. So we've been using Roll20 and Zoom. That's how we've been doing it. Happy gaming, man. All right, next up, Django19 writes, see Dollar Trilogy before Unforgiven to appreciate it? I don't think so. I mean, you can. You absolutely can. But there are no prerequisites to Unforgiven. Unforgiven is so brilliantly made. There is no prerequisites for it. Now, watching the Dollar Trilogy is just great in and of itself, but you can walk right into Unforgiven, no problem, Django. All right, Henry Stevens writes, hey, everybody, I wanted to share with everyone proof of what John says. I've started a YouTube show some geek talks about from meeting someone through this show, joined a podcast, The Glorious Movie Show, and written a book I always wanted to write. You can. Probably just saying you can too, which is great. That's the thing. I'm always encouraging people. Start YouTube channels. Get involved in a podcast. You want to write a book? Write a book. Just sit down and do it. Don't think you can't. You absolutely can. And Henry Stevens is writing and saying he is living proof. Now you can do it. And it's just fun and it's great to do it and it enhances your fandom. I say do it, and I'm glad you did that as well. Thanks for sharing your story on that, Henry. I appreciate that. All right, next up, Slim Trav writes, after Bloodshot failed, is Valiant Universe done? I'm not going to say it's done. Rob, I'm not going to say it's done. It was one shot. It was one shot. It's not a very good movie. I joked about this weekend, Rob, though. I said that if they asked me to give them a critic quote that they can put on their poster, I'd say, John Campea says, Bloodshot is a movie. That's about as far as I can go. It's a movie. And I love Vin Diesel, but it just doesn't work for me. Now, you have to put an asterisk beside its financial failure because it came out in the midst of everything that's going on right now with coronavirus and everything. Every movie from that to Onward and everything else, you got to put a big asterisk beside it when talking about them being as financial failures. I'm not ready to say that one big stumble out of the gate has killed the idea of a Valiant Universe. It hasn't helped. But Rob, do you think we're going to see it back?
Well, the great thing about the Valiant Universe is there's so many diverse characters that they don't necessarily have to say that they're connected yet. You could go do an Archer and Armstrong or an Exo Man of War or whatever character that you would like to delve into. And if they take off, you can always bring back Bloodshot and add him into that universe. It's not like everyone knows the Valiant universe the way they know Marvel and DC. I mean, we all grow up watching, whether you read comics or watch animated shows. I mean, when I was a little kid, one of my favorite cartoon shows was the hour-long Super Friends, but people don't feel that way about the Valiant universe, so they could always start again with new characters and build from the ground up if they wanted to.
All right, and our last question here today with Robert here, because he's got things he's got to do, comes to us from Matthew Phillips, who writes, with movie releases being in flux and going straight to streaming/digital, how do you see the Oscars and other award shows taking place? Postponement in hopes of a live show, or could it happen virtually? Oh, dude, no. The award season is so far off. It's so far off. Everything will be back to relative normal by then. That's not a problem. That's not going to be a problem or an issue. And by the way, Rob, what I've said about this before is that, what about movies that were supposed to be coming out now and might get pushed to 2021? Well, the reality is 95% of real Oscar caliber and Oscar potential movies don't come out this time of year anyway. So I honestly see there being, for everything that's going on right now, I see there actually being very little impact on the Oscars. Impact on the movie industry as a whole, yes, but on the Oscars and award season, I see very little impact, to be honest. What about you? What am I missing here?
No, I think you might be right. I mean, depending on where we're at. Remember, look, if you work in video or you work in post-production the way I've worked in post for a long time, and you know this, you're working on a documentary now. It's not like you've stopped working on it. You're able to work on it because you can work on it yourself. And I think that, if a director and an editor are not, they're not infected or they've been tested, people could still be working away on these things. And I would imagine that one of the great things that might be the upside for movie fans about this whole situation is that once people can go back to the theaters, I think you're going to see a deluge of movies, and especially Oscar caliber movies. We've got still hopefully October, November, December will be a bounty of great films, and I'm looking forward to seeing an Oscar slate of movies I think that are going to be terrific. I for one can't wait. I was telling Elizabeth last night, I'm like, God, it'd be so great to go to a Mexican restaurant, just have margaritas and hear the clinking of glasses, and go to our, like, El Portal here, and then go to a movie afterwards at the ArcLight. I just miss going into a place where there's people. And I think people are going to want to do that. I think people are going to want to hear laughter and gasps in movie theaters again. I think that if there's one thing that we've learned, I mean, maybe that the benefit of all of this is at the end of the day, we'll learn to just be a little bit more mindful of our fellow mankind after this is all over, and realize that why don't we all be more social and be more aware of one another? And I think I tend to see that this ultimately, just aside from the lack of the loss of life and the things that have been tragic and horrible, that maybe this world shutdown ultimately might be a good thing. And maybe for movies, people will not take them for granted as much anymore. At least that's the way I'd like to look at it.
I agree. Hey, listen, man, wise words as always from your ice cream truck of joy. But listen, Rob, in the meantime, before we have you back again tomorrow, where can people follow you in all your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Robert My Burnett, find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnettwork, which I might as well rename to The Ice Cream Man. But for now, it's just going to be The Burnettwork and my show Robservations.
All right, dude. Always great having you here, and we will talk to you again tomorrow, sir.
All right.
Have a good one. All right, guys. With that down, let's keep right on rolling. We still got about 25 minutes here. I think we can get through all the questions here today. At least I hope we can. Let's keep on rolling here. Jerome Smith II writes, John, after mailbag yesterday, I watched Grave of the Fireflies. I'm a 38-year-old man. I never thought an animated Japanese film could hit me so damn hard. I keep telling people, dude, it's a movie that I have two very strange recommendations for. Number one, watch this movie. Number two, never watch it again. It is a brilliant, wonderful, amazing movie that takes a baseball back to your gut when you watch it. And I can't do it again. It's just so powerful. But hey, man, I'm glad you saw it, Jerome, and I concur with your sentiments wholeheartedly. Orlando Orrego writes, hey, John, I saw the movie A Quiet Place through first time for the first time on Hulu. Nice. I wonder how that movie would have been in theaters with all that tension, especially with little things like the nail scene. I'll tell you what, the nail scene is one of the most gut-twisting scenes I've seen in a movie in years. Like a movie with monsters ripping human beings apart and pulling their entrails out. But the part that twisted my gut was watching a woman walking downstairs and then stepping on a nail. The brilliance of this movie and what they were able to do with this movie without even dialogue for a lot of it. It's unbelievable. It was my favorite movie of the year. I guess I can take my headphones off now. It was my favorite movie of the year that it came out. And, dude, I adore that movie so much. And being in theater, it was such an epic experience. Watching a movie like that in theater was absolutely fantastic. But hey, it's still great on Hulu. I'm glad you had a chance to get caught up on it. All right, who was that? That was Orlando. Orlando also writes, do you think that the cast of A Quiet Place got pedicures after the movie shoot, walking around barefoot? A lot of barefoot walking in that movie to keep things quiet. They probably got a lot of stuff on set, I would imagine a lot of stuff. An anonymous viewer writes, drive-in theaters are sounding really appealing right about now. Yeah, I love the idea of going to a drive-in theater, but I think somebody just told me yesterday that while drive-in theaters are open in a lot of states, somebody told me yesterday, I don't know if this is 100% true, somebody told me yesterday that Californian drive-in theaters have been shut down. Drive-in theaters in California have been shut down, which I think that's because I know they're open just like last week, which to me is strange because how more socially isolated can you be than in your own car? But hey, listen, if you're in a place though that has drive-ins, go to a drive-in theater. Support the drive-in theater, get out of the house, go see a movie, that sort of thing. Go to that. It does sound amazingly appealing to me right now. All right, Chris Hunt. Was that announced? Yes. Chris Hunt writes, daytime / late night television talk shows in isolation have basically become the John Campea Show, except the audio / visual quality is much worse. Yeah, I actually tuned in and watched a couple of them, and you're right. They're kind of basically like the John Campea Show. Only the John Campea Show is better produced from home than their stuff. I said it. I stand by that. Anyway, thanks for that, Chris. Appreciate that. Little Ray writes, long time, first time. Thanks so much for that, Little Ray. Have you seen the new Chris Benoit doc on Vice? The whole thing is on YouTube. It's really good, but I warn you, it is spine chilling. Ann and I both started watching it the other night, but then we had to stop because we had something we had to do. And I'm going to finish it off. I got about halfway through part 1 because it's in 2 parts online. And I got halfway through part 1. And it is sad and depressing and that's just the word for it, sad. It's so sad. And I know they were going to try to make that Crossface movie about Chris Benoit, but I believe that's kind of been derailed. I don't think it's happening anymore. You never know, but I don't think it's happening anymore. But yeah, it is totally, totally sad to see, and I got to finish it off. I got to finish it off. All right, Lawrence Reed writes, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out 30 years ago today. Where do you think you rank it in your top comic book movies? Nowhere. It does not rank anywhere in my top comic book movies thing. Don't get me wrong. I have fun with that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. But it's not my top 10. It's not my top 20. I doubt it's even in my top 30. Might crack the top 30, maybe. But in legitimate discussions about top comic book movies, it's not up there for me, but it's a classic little film that gave me a lot of joy. But no, I do not rank it amongst the top comic book movies, but holy crap, it's 30 years old. Holy crap. All right. Matt Guillemet writes, would you rather see a sequel for Jason Bourne or Bourne Legacy? Been watching the Bourne series during the virus, even the TV movie from 1988. And hey, that's a good series. You know what? I did not mind the Bourne Legacy. The only thing I didn't like about the Bourne Legacy was they kept name dropping Jason Bourne like 50 times in the movie without Jason Bourne being in it, and that became a little bit irritating. But aside from that, I actually like the movie. I think it's pretty good. I was not a big fan of the most recent Jason Bourne movie, where the one where they're basically trying to take down Facebook, a Facebook stand. That one didn't work for me so well, but I do like the franchise. I would go for another Jason Bourne movie. If I had to pick, I would go for another Jason, even though I do like the Bourne Legacy. Darth Sidious writes, hey, John and Rob, I'm Star Wars Rocks. Well, good to know. Alex Detman writes, one of two. Hey, John, I would have to say the choices available I would have to say, of the choices available, I would say God of War would be a great cinematic trilogy with amazing mythology and excellent characters, but I can't for the life of me picture who could play the role, since Kratos is very emotionally suppressed character. Whoever would play him would have to truly use body language as the core to convey the pain and loss. I agree. It would be a tough role to cast. I actually feel like in the hands of the right director, maybe a Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista would actually probably not be bad. Jason Momoa is actually another good one, but I don't know if Jason Momoa can do subtle. I like Jason Momoa very much, but you need obviously a physically large character. But obviously acting talent comes first. Dave Bautista has come a long way over the years, and a role like that might be good for him, but it would be tough. But that would be key. Casting of Kratos would be key. Absolutely. Let's see. Guillemet Labelle writes. Where we go? There we are. Just watched They Live for the first time. I'm here to kick ass and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum. For the first time last night, and it was pretty rad. That fight scene made it all the more memorable. The one in the alley with Roddy. Yeah, absolutely. The social commentary, while a little on the nose, added a little more relevance to it. Side note, my name is pronounced Guillaume. Oh, Guillaume. Actually, you know what? I should have known that. I should have known that I did that. Guillaume. I called it Guillemet, but Guillaume. I'll probably forget, but thank you. But yeah, They Live is such a great little movie. And you're right. They bang you over the head with the social commentary, but for the era, it was a treasure. And Roddy Piper, who himself was an absolute treasure. It is great going back and watching that. So that's a good recommendation, Guillaume. They Live. That is a great recommendation. All right, next up. Actor Friend 90 writes, opened YouTube TV and saw that they are giving Epix channel for free for a month. Watched Rocket Man and Child's Play so far. Okay, somebody help me out here. Is Epix the station that does the Alfred show? You know, the Alfred, I think it was just called Pennyworth. Is that the network that did Pennyworth? Because I'll tell you what, I think they put the first 3 or 4 episodes of Pennyworth up on Amazon Prime. And so I watched the first few episodes, but then I ran out of episodes to watch because I didn't want to sign up for yet another streaming service. But if that was Epix, and I'm not 100% sure if it is, if that's Epix, I gotta get back on that and finish Pennyworth, because I never finished Pennyworth season 1. And I'll tell you what, I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying Pennyworth. So if that's a thing, thank you for putting that on my radar, actor friend. I got to go and check that out. Okay, next up here, Preston Bell writes, hey, John, I just saw Aeronauts, the big hot air balloon thing, and I really liked it, but if they go 30,000 feet up in the air, how do they not need oxygen tanks? Thanks for reading. I don't have a answer to that. I'm trying to think back to the movie. Did they ever touch on that? You know what? That's a good point to bring up, Preston Bell. I haven't even I'll be honest, I haven't even thought of that. Huh. All right, guys in the comments section. How did they do that? That's actually a really good question, Preston Bell. That's a good problem with the movie. All right. RC Murphy writes, hey, what's the best way to support movies that never made it to theater? How are these poor films making money, or are they written off financially? They're mostly just written off. But remember, there are a lot of movies where the producers knew they would never make it to theater. So they're made for a lot less money. They have a different marketing strategy, a different distribution strategy to go directly to Netflix or go directly to a streaming station or go directly to VOD, but they're made with very, very much more significantly smaller budgets, and that was always the plan. The best way to support those movies, if you enjoy those movies, is to go and find them on Netflix or on Hulu or on Amazon Prime or whatever and give them a watch there. You know, I'm working on a movie right now that is never going to make it to movie theaters, other than like some special screenings that I maybe hold myself. But it's going to be directly to, if I'm very lucky, will go directly to a streaming service. And that's the plan, because I'm not spending $1 million to make my movie. I'm spending significantly less. And so that's the best way to do it, RC Murray, is go and watch those films, if you're so inclined, on the streaming networks that they end up on. All right. Rowdy Brave Bone writes, good afternoon. I am a huge Robert Kirkman Invincible fan and was pretty excited to see Amazon releasing an animated series this year. Really? I haven't heard anything new since. Has there been anything new? I am completely in the dark on that. I'm not aware of that. So the best thing to do, dude, let me look this up here quick here. Let me see if there's anything on there upcoming. Let me see if I can pull something up here. Wait a minute. Apparently, is it already out? Invincible Season 1. Oh, that's the 2009 one. Okay, that's the 2009 one. Them doing are you saying they're doing a new animated series? If you're talking about the old animated series, it apparently is already up. It's already up. But if you're talking about a new one, that's the one I'm completely not familiar with. So I'm not finding any news on it right now, but I will keep my eyes open for it as we move forward. But anyway, a good one to bring up there, Roddy Braybone. All right. Star Wars Rocks writes, what does Netflix have against Mozilla Firefox? Why don't they also have party feature on Mozilla Firefox? I don't know. Who cares? I think I don't know, Chrome is just easier to work with, and having and Chrome is the most popular browser. I mean, you can ask, why doesn't that work with Safari? Why doesn't it work with, this or that? Internet Explorer even. I mean, I don't know. But hey, Chrome is free. Don't complain. Chrome is free. You can go install it and just use it for Netflix Party Field. But I don't know why they don't have it on more. Maybe they just wanted to make it a consistent experience by having it on one browser extension. All right, Matt Thornton writes, I watched Lady and the Tramp remake, and I liked it more than I expected. I did not. Cast was great, as was the setting, and finally, Aunt Sarah got her comeuppance. Yeah, I mean, my wife, who is a major dog person, was so looking forward to that, and unfortunately, she just didn't enjoy it. Didn't work so well. My unfortunate first two experiences with Disney Plus original movies was that one with Anna Kendrick called Noelle, where she plays Santa's daughter. Awful. Just awful. And I love her. I love Anna Kendrick. And that movie was just awful. And then got around to watching Lady and the Tramp, and I'm like, well, that's a movie. Didn't work for me. But you know what? You're not alone, Matt. I've got a couple of other friends that actually enjoyed it and liked it too. So just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you don't need to like it. I've got some other friends that enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you did. I got to tell you, I was kind of curious about it and didn't really work for me, unfortunately. All right. R. Lee writes, Tiffany Haddish is saying she and her Girls Trip co-stars are ready for part 2. Granted, Universal has not greenlit it. Considering it made $140 million on a $20 million budget, would the studio be foolish to ignore this? Yes. The studio would be foolish to ignore it. Now, the key, though, would be keeping that cost down. Because the danger here is that Tiffany Haddish and all the rest of them are going to want a bigger payday than what they got in the first one. And if that's the case, then you don't make the movie. This isn't a movie. Look, I love Girls Trip. Girls Trip was so pleasantly surprised. I laughed my ass off when I watched that movie. And Tiffany Haddish to me was a revelation in that movie. I love that film. Love it. But it's not a movie that's going to make $500 million. Right? It's not a movie that's going to make $400 million. It's going to have an audience, and it's going to have a loyal audience, but you've got to keep the cost down. If the stars of the movie are willing to come back at the same pay rate and they can keep this movie to $25 million budget, I think they'd be crazy not to do it. But if they all want big pay raises and suddenly you got to spend $40 or $50 million to make this movie, then I say you take a pass. You got to be smart. And we've seen lots of sequels lately come out that are sequels to good movies that didn't make as much money as the original did. So you can't just assume that because the last one made that kind of profit that the next one will. If they can keep it to $25 million, I think they would be crazy, Arlie, not to do another one, because I think that movie is awesome. All right, Jesse writes, The Last of Us is my favorite video game of all time. Uncharted is my favorite video game franchise. But God of War, I think, would make the best film. The characters, mythology are perfect for adaptation. I completely agree. And once again, Jesse, I believe that all three of those are going to be great on the screen. Big screen, small screen, whatever. I think all three of them are going to be great. And I think they all have huge potential. All of them. But just when you get into the finer points of God of War, it just takes it over the edge for me. Again, I'm not saying that one's a better video game than the other. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when you look at the underlying story, I think one has an even bigger set of potentials for the screen, and I think that's God of War. I think it's God of War. Even though all the other ones are going to be great too, I'm still leaning towards God of War. Max Barca21 writes, Rob, I saw Dune yesterday, and while I can see the attraction to the fantasy in it, the movie ended, and all I could think is, what the F did I just watch? Hope a new movie will be easier to take in. Now listen, Dune, you got to understand, when you hear a lot of people oohing and awing about Dune, a lot of them are not oohing and awing about the film, nor about the miniseries that came out afterwards. They're oohing and awing about the books, right? And Dune as a book is beloved, but traditionally incredibly challenging and difficult, presents a lot of problems in bringing to a screen. That's what Denis Villeneuve is dealing with right now. And that's why it's taking a director like him to do it. So somebody asked the other day about what kind of expectations should we have going into Dune. And I say, I have high hopes, but managed expectations, because this has traditionally been a very problematic piece of IP to bring to the screen. So let's cut them a little bit of slack and see how it goes. But again, don't let that movie turn you off, because a lot of fans of Dune are turned off by the movie. Remember, they're basing this on the book, and let's see what they're able to do there. All right, next up, Claudius writes, Amistad and Umbrellas of Cherbourg for Paprapolis de Cherbourg, I'm sure that's French, are great films. Side note, I used to volunteer crew on the Amistad replica stationed in New Haven, Connecticut Harbor. My question, how about reintroducing the original X-Men on Disney+? Oh, I don't think that's a good way to go. I think when you bring the X-Men back, you bring them in grand fashion. They're simply too big and too important. I don't believe you, like you can introduce the smaller, lesser known characters on She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, right? That's a great avenue for them. X-Men? No, I think that would be a tragic mistake to introduce them on Disney+. That's not to say you can't do a lot of X-Men stuff on Disney+. You can, but that's not how you introduce X-Men. I disagree. I don't think that's the way to go. There might be ways to do it. I just don't think that's the right way to go. All right, Alexander Wilson writes, the first movie I ever cried at was The Cider House Rules. That's a really good little film. When I was 10. What is the first movie you ever cried at? Also, Boys in the Hood teared me up. First movie I ever cried in? You know, it might honestly be My Best Friend's Wedding. And I know that sounds strange. Hold on, let me look something up here. My Best Friend's Wedding came out in 97. Life is Beautiful also came out in 97. So I'm trying to remember which one of the two I saw first. I think I saw My Best Friend's Wedding first. Yes, the Julia Roberts comedy. I believe that might be the first film that actually made me weep. That actually made tears come out of my eyes and I cried. And it was that scene of great friendship at the end when he comes back to be there for her at the wedding. To me, that just moved me so much. And then Life is Beautiful. Both the films made me cry for very different reasons, but I think that I saw Best Friend's Wedding first before I saw Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful, so I will go with that one. All right, Gabby writes, hey, John and Rob, here are my two movie recommendations for today. Doc Hollywood, 1991, that's fun, and Coupe de Ville, 1990. They are two delightful feel-good movies from the early 90s that always bring me a smile to my face when I watch them. Now, Doc Hollywood, that is the one with Michael J. Fox. Yes, I'm thinking it is. I think it is. Let me just bring it up here just to make sure. Yes, it is. Directed by Michael Canton Jones. The movie had Michael J. Fox, Julie Warner, Woody Harrelson was in it. God, I forgot Woody Harrelson was in that. That movie's like 30 years old, almost 30 years old. Yeah, that was a fun little one. It's one of those more forgotten Michael J. Fox ones. I mean, obviously, when we think of Michael J. Fox, we think of Back to the Future, we think of Teen Wolf. Doc Hollywood is probably one that goes... so not my favorite Michael J. Fox one. Not my favorite Michael J. Fox. But yeah, I remember enjoying that one, Gabby. I do. All right. Len Art writes, "Hey, fellas, have you seen the buddy cop show Common Law? It's so effing fun, and Michael Ealy and Warren Cole play so well." I've never even heard of it. Hold on a second. Common Law. Let's look this up here. It's from 2012, so it's not a current one. No, it was on the USA Network. I haven't watched, I'll be honest, I've not watched a lot of stuff on the USA Network, so that might have something to do with it. All right, next up, Lewis Dotson writes, "Thoughts on The Kingdom, starring Jamie Foxx, Jennifer Garner, Jason Bateman, Chris Cooper, Jeremy Piven, Danny Houston. Underrated movie to me. I love it." I enjoyed Kingdom. Now, I'm also a big Jennifer Garner fan. Jamie Foxx was a hot deal at the time. I thought it was a really good movie. And I know there's a lot of people who didn't like that film. I thought it was a good film. I mean, it's not the one I rank right up. I don't rank it up as an all-time favorite. It wasn't even in my top 10 favorite the year that it came out. But it is one. Chris Cooper was actually really strong in that one as well. All right. And our last question today. Andrew at the Movies writes, "I work with Tom Burgess' son." Oh, really? That's why I asked. We talk movies all the time. Yeah, the former CFL quarterback brought him up a little bit. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. I always like having a little bit of a CFL, an excuse to talk CFL. I don't talk CFL much on this because most people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about when I bring up CFL. But thank you for bringing that up. And all right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, guys, we'll be back again tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Me and Robert Meyer Burnett will be back. And don't forget, today at 1 p.m., ladies and gentlemen, today at 1 p.m., come and join us as we do an Avengers Infinity watch party using Netflix Watch Party. Now, in order to participate, you're going to have to be a Netflix member, but also you got to go and install the Netflix Party extension on your Chrome browser. Go over to www.netflixparty.com and then make sure you check my Twitter, simply at John Campea, at 12:45 p.m. or afterwards, and I will post the link to come and join the watch party. And then I will also, not only can we chat on the watch party in the text box, but I'll also be live streaming on my YouTube channel, me as well, so I can, verbally answer a lot of people who are asking questions. Make sure you come and join us there for that. Guys, thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. He'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you to all of you for making the show a part of your day, and a special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions, because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported the channel while you did it, and all of us here, thank you very much for that. Okay, guys, make sure you click the thumbs up button, leave a comment in the comment section below. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, stay safe, guys.